Hello there, my name is Raina Rorie, and I'm a doctoral candidate at Baylor University in the School of Education's Learning and Organizational Change program. First, I'd like to say thank you to my faculty advisor and mentor, Dr. Leanne Howe, and I'd like to say thank you to you for taking the time to join me as I share with you my dissertation. My dissertation is titled, How Can You Be What You Can't See? A multiple case study exploring Black women's experiences in senior leadership positions in higher education and the strategies they use to combat systemic barriers. My dissertation will be presented in the following order: the statement of the problem, the purpose of this dissertation, an overview of the literature review, followed by the research questions and the theoretical framework that guided my dissertation. I will then discuss the methodology, an overview of the findings, the implications and recommendations, and finally the distribution plan. The problem is that there are too few Black women in senior level leadership positions in higher education's predominantly white institutions, or PWIs. Many higher education institutions were founded on exclusion, racism, and sexism. PWIs have systemically and structurally upheld barriers to advancement and achievement, leaving few Black women in senior level leadership roles. Despite claiming progressive values, many institutions remain rooted in discriminatory practices, segregationist behaviors, and status quo traditions. The purpose of this study is to explore the experiences of Black women senior level leaders in higher education with the tenets of Black feminist thought and to uncover the strategies they use to combat systematic barriers in achieving their positions. The literature review was comprised of three main sections. The first section of the literature review was the challenges and experiences of Black women in America. This section was broken down into the following subsections: challenges related to history, challenges related to social and cultural experiences, challenges related to health disparities, challenges related to primary and secondary education, challenges related to the workplace and economy, and challenges related to the glass ceiling. The second section of the literature review was the experiences of Black women in higher education. This section was broken down into the following subsections: the experiences of Black female college students, the experiences of Black female faculty, the experiences of Black female senior level leaders, and the experiences of Black female senior level leaders and campus microaggressions. The third and final section of the literature review was essential elements of higher education leadership. This section was broken down into the following subsections: pathways, mentorship, and networking. This study was guided by two research questions. The first research question that guided the study was, in what ways do the tenets of Black feminist thought manifest in the experiences of Black women senior level leaders in higher education in the achievement of their positions at predominantly white institutions, PWIs? The second research question that guided this study was, what strategies do Black women senior level leaders in higher education at PWIs utilize to combat perceived systemic barriers? The theoretical framework I used to shape this study was Black feminist thought, which was developed by Patricia Hill Collins in 1986. For this study, I focused on her three seminal tenets due to their historical significance, their clarity, and their effectiveness in conveying the core principles of Black feminist thought. The first tenet is the meaning of self-definition and self-valuation. Self-definition challenges the controlling and stereotypical images created by dominant societal groups placed upon Black women. Images such as Black women being depicted as aggressive, unfeminine, mammies, welfare queens, or Jezebels. Self-valuation emphasizes the significance of Black women defining themselves with images that they have determined to be authentic and true. Self-valuation empowers Black women to reject the psychological and oppressive ideologies that they've internalized over the years while enduring inhumane treatment. The second tenet of the Black feminist thought theoretical framework is the interlocking nature of oppression. For Black women, even when they attempt to minimalize one form of oppression, other forms of oppression are still present. It's the interlocking nature of oppression in which race, gender, class, among other things, continually collide. This tenet of Black feminist thought focuses on the idea that there is no either-or duality in the experiences of Black women, but instead, Black women utilize their knowledge and experience with interlocking oppression to effect change. The third and final tenet of this theoretical framework is the importance of Black women's culture. This tenet empowers Black women to be rooted in their Blackness and to not focus on conforming to standards perpetuated by the predominant white culture of America. It focuses on how Black women's lived experiences shape their perspectives, but also how Black women find commonalities across their experiences. And while there are commonalities, there is no one single experience that defines what it means to be a Black woman. This tenet also focuses on the culture of relationships that Black women build, such as their familiar relationships with their children and spouses, community relationships, activism-rooted relationships, and other created sisterhood fellowships and friendships, often highlighted in the passing down and celebration of non-common cultural knowledge among generations. When looking at the methodology for this study, I will first discuss the design. For this study, I chose a qualitative design because I wanted to understand a human problem and to empower individuals to share their stories, hear their voices, and minimize the power relationships that often exist. I chose a multiple case study because it allowed me to collect diverse perspectives from multiple participants and to use their detailed experiences and descriptions to provide robust data to compare and contrast. The multiple case study approach also allowed me to add more Black women's perspectives to the existing literature. The participants were all leaders at different PWIs from across the country, making each one of their cases unique and specific. This is the main reason why I opted to use a multiple case study approach instead of a single case study approach. The criteria for the participants in this study was that they had to identify as a Black woman, they had to currently work at a 4-year NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 PWI in the United States, and they had to have at least 3 years of experience in senior level leadership. The sampling strategy I used for my participants was a blended approach of criterion-based purposeful sampling with maximum variation. This resulted in 6 total participants. The following information encompassed the demographics of the 6 participants. Position-wise, there were 2 presidents, 1 vice president and chief strategy officer, 1 vice president for student affairs and dean of students, 1 vice president for student affairs and athletics, and 1 provost and vice president of academic affairs and student affairs. As for the institution types, there were 2 NCAA Division I institutions and 4 NCAA Division III institutions. For the highest degrees earned, all participants had earned a terminal degree, with 1 having a JD, 1 having an EdD, and 4 having PhDs. I collected data from the participants using 3 different methods: a personal life timeline form, a semi-structured interview, and a focus group interview. The personal life timeline form allowed the participants to present events that they deemed significant in their lives and in the trajectory of their careers that align with the 3 tenets of Black feminist thought. The semi-structured interview allowed participants to elaborate on questions in an open-ended format, and the focus group allowed participants an opportunity to exchange information based on their individual experiences. Next, I will share an overview of the findings. The first 3 findings of the study related to the first research question, which was, in what ways do the tenets of Black feminist thought manifest in the experiences of Black women senior level leaders in higher education in their achievement of the positions at PWIs? Finding number 1 was that Black women senior level leaders in senior level leadership positions in higher education are authentic, valuable change makers who define their worth. Finding number 2 was that Black women in senior level leadership positions in higher education face compounded, persistent, and undermining oppression. Finding number 3 was that Black women in senior level leadership positions in higher education utilize their culture of resiliency and creative approaches to build community, find mentorship, and foster generational support. The fourth finding related to the second research question, which was, what strategies do Black women senior level leaders in higher education at PWIs utilize to combat perceived systemic barriers? Finding number 4 was that Black women in senior level leadership positions in higher education use allyship, continual learning, mentoring, and networking as strategies to combat systemic barriers and empower change. These findings related to the literature in multiple ways. Findings 1, 2, and 3 relate directly to section 1 and 2 of the literature review, which looks at the challenges and experiences of Black women in America, as well as their experiences as Black women in higher education. All 4 findings relate to the third section of the literature review, which was essential elements for higher education leadership, but especially the fourth finding, which showed that while there are essential elements, Black women do not always have the same access to those elements as others, and they have to find their own creative ways to access those elements. Next, I will share the implications and recommendations for 4 key decision makers. The first group is PWI administrators and leadership search committees. The implications and recommendations are: first, the demographics of higher education have changed. Students must see themselves reflected in their leadership. Some of the recommendations include investing in bias training, not just for the search committees, but for current leadership, administrators, and faculty, focusing on the unconscious and conscious biases that plague Black women candidates. Another recommendation is to invest in current Black women employees. That means a financial investment in sending them to conferences and to leadership academies or institutes and other programs. Another recommendation is to establish mentorship programs connecting Black women to current senior leaders. This would help foster relationships within the institution while also providing additional pathways of opportunities from within Black women in the institution to follow. And then the final recommendation is for PWI administrators and leadership committees to actively recruit candidates from a broader pool, such as conferences or networks that prioritize the professional development of Black women in higher education. The second group is higher education associations and associated conference leadership. One of the biggest implications is that associations or conferences are not accessible. The first recommendation would be to offer tiered or scaled pricing. The next recommendation would be to provide scholarship, travel grants, registration fee waivers, as well, especially if those are applying are at non-member institutions. People that are non-member institutions to some of these associations and conferences have to pay higher fees than those whose institutions are paid members of an organization. The third group is current Black women senior level leaders in higher education. The implications are that even though there are few in those positions, many are eager to support the next generations. So recommendations is build an open relationship to connect. Another recommendation is continue to advocate and encourage Black women interested in senior level leadership positions. The fourth and final group is Black women interested in senior level leadership positions in higher education. The first implication is you're not alone. You're not the only one. Recommendations include speaking up. Use your voice to share your interests. If no one knows that you're interested, no one's going to be there to help support you. Another recommendation is to build your supportive network. The next recommendation is to make yourself visible in all campus activities. Volunteer for the committee work. Help organize events. And finally, take advantage of all professional development and skill building opportunities. As for the distribution plan for this study, I plan on utilizing multiple avenues, including professional conferences such as the Higher Learning Commission Annual Conference, academic journals such as Advancing Women in Leadership, professional networks such as the National Association of Student Affairs Administrators in Higher Education, NASPA, and affinity groups and institutional diversity forums such as Black Girl Doctorate. And finally, a list of selected references. Again, I want to thank my dissertation committee for all their support, my participants, my family, my friends, and you for watching. Thank you so much.